So, hello and welcome back. And today we're going to talk about words and the power of words, which is indeed something that I've been talking about before as well. And I do often want and hopefully also do underline that words are powerful and that we actually can hurt somebody by saying something, and or completely the opposite. We can really make somebody's day by saying something pretty, not necessarily specific, but just by saying something. And so I found this Reddit post from the self-improvement subreddit. Recently, I commented on someone's post. They were asking for help on how to react to an ex who wants to get back. I suggested that they consider giving the ex another chance of proving themselves. That is when people starting to downvote my comment and actually cursing me in their comments. They accused me of many things and insulted me for my opinion. It was so overwhelming that I had to delete the comment to stop the insults, but just wanted to remind you guys, there are actual people behind these posts and comments you see on the internet, and just cause you don't agree with someone doesn't give you the right to insult them. Your words actually hurt. And yeah, a ton of people, there's actually 58 comments that, quite in the end, probably said something positive as this comment points out. Looks like to me that you've been a lot of positive feedback in this post, that you've gotten. And I agree with you on everything. I'm rooting for you, but let me say this. I know it hurt. It sucks to have negative comments and hate towards you. And now from this post that you are in the right and people agree with you. So what I think it may be interesting is to actually take the opportunity to be okay with being misunderstood, with being rejected, controversial. Stay true to your beliefs when no one else agrees with you. I say that because I have a really hard time with it, but I don't want to be comfortable and confident on my skin. I can't please people all the time, and I think I avoid to confidently affirm my opinions because of it. So what do you think? Well, what I think is, you can't make it right all the time for everybody else. Of course, you might be able to make it right for somebody all the time, but you're never ever going to be able to do it for everybody, not every single family member you're having, and so on and so forth. Like, there's way too many people and way too many things and way too many variables. I mean, it is insane to try that. You're never going to succeed in doing that. Well, maybe you can succeed at doing that, but you're probably and 100% not going to be happy while doing so. Then it's gonna break you. It's gonna make you feel extremely fucking bad, and I wouldn't say that this is worth it. But with that being said, I have found an interesting psychologytoday.com article which is exactly about words and the power of words. But I do also want to point out, if an ex is willing to get back with you, then, and it always depends on the context, it always depends on the previous relationship that you had with this person, but at least at my point of view, it is always okay to give another chance, and it might actually also be like, well, after one day you notice that it is just false hopes and whatnot, and then you can say goodbye, and we are done. I've given you a chance, and I don't really feel like you have proven to me that you're willing to take it as well. I don't know, like, I'm always a guy or a person that believes in giving another chance and another chance and another chance, but at some point, one indeed has to say like, no, you're not getting another one. I noticed, and I know that you're not putting in the work, you're not putting in the energy and time and whatever I'm willing to see from you. But yeah, anyway, let's have a look at this Psychology Today article by Peg Streep. Why words can hurt at least as much as sticks and stones. 6 revelations about the connection between emotional and physical pain, posted August 20th, 2013. Just as the digital age has ushered in new ways of enhancing human connection, it has also opened up the scope and range of social rejection. Unfriend, as in unFacebook friend, was the word of the year in 2009, joining its older cohort cyberbully amid the advent of the text breakup of the Facebook status change as ways to tell him or her that it is over. Even though, one has to really think about how one wants to communicate certain things. Wouldn't necessarily say that it is okay to do it with a fucking change in your motherfucking Facebook status. At first, of course you can do it afterwards, nobody's stopping you from doing so, but I don't know, what about just telling the person what is up and so on. But anyway, with the yin and yang of digital life in mind, it seems relevant to explore what science knows about emotional pain and its connection to the physical kind. Language has always mirrored the connection between the two. We suffer from broken hearts, quote unquote, as well as bones, and speak of bruised feelings along with those. This all seems intuitively right because we recognize the common basis of the pain we experience, whether a throbbing headache or the pain of missing someone so much that you ache. Is there anyone out there who actually believes the line, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never harm me"? So I somehow doubt it. But now science has a bait on the literal harm that words inflict. The links go well beyond the metaphorical. Following our 6 fascinating truths science has revealed about the physical ramifications of emotional pain. The first, we are hardwired to feel emotional pain as well as physical pain. It's been hypothesized that it is not just a human infant's many years of the dependence on caretakers until he or she finally reaches maturity, but also the continued reliance of individuals on others for basic sustenance and protection from the earliest hunter-gatherer cultures and forward that makes feeling the loss of social connections an evolutionary advantage. Human beings don't thrive going it alone the way snakes do, just as physical pain signals us that we must withdraw from or flee from something that is hurting us in order to survive. So too does the loneliness we feel in isolation or the anxiety induced by abandonment reinforces us to seek out and maintain social connections. Of course, it certainly doesn't feel like an advantage, evolutionary or otherwise, when you're in the throes of emotional devastation. Well, obviously not. The moment you hear that your ex is madly in love, blissed to the max and about to get married, when your close friend cuts you off with nary a word of explanation, or at the moment your mother, who never has anything nice to say about you, tells you once again that you are a horrible disappointment. The second point, social pain may be more like physical pain than not. While both physical and emotional pain hurt, they seem on the surface at least to do so in different ways, right? Well, maybe not as much as we might think. While it is true that slicing a finger instead of the onion on the cutting board is one kind of experience and being dumped by someone you love is another, there is evidence that they have more in common than not. For example, Naomi L. Eisenberger and others used neuroimaging to see what happened to the brain when someone was socially excluded. Participants in the experiment were told they'd be playing an online ball-tossing game with other players unbeknownst to them. The other players weren't people but computers. In the first round, the subjects were included by the other players who tossed the ball to them. In the second round, they were deliberately excluded. The neuroimaging showed greater activity after the exclusion in the regions of the brain associated with the affective component of physical pain, suggesting a shared circuitry. But another experiment by Ethan Cross and others went even further, positing that there might be more of an overlap if the stimulus were strong enough. Perhaps being quote-unquote excluded from an online game just didn't pack enough of a social well. So they conducted an experiment to see whether they could involve the regions of the brain that are involved in both the affective and sensory components of physical pain. The researchers recruited 40 participants who'd experienced an unwanted romantic breakup. In other words, they'd been dumped by someone they loved. During MRI scanning, the participants were put through a number of tasks. They were asked to look at headshots of their ex and specifically think about their feelings of rejection. Ouch. And then at a photo of a friend, someone of the same gender as their ex-partner, and think about the positive experiences they had shared with that person. The same participants were also given 2 types of physical pain tests. One, a hot trial, where enough heat to cause discomfort was applied to the left forearm, and a warm trial applied to the same location, which was hot enough to produce sensation but not discomfort. What the researchers found was that the same parts of the brain were activated by the pain of recalling rejection and the physical pain of heat. Future research will reveal more about it. Would appear that the connection between emotional and physical pain is much, much more than a metaphor. The third, words hurt just like sticks and stones. We all know this despite the adage. When I was writing Mean Mothers, women who were victims of just verbal abuse often commented that they wished they'd been hit so that their wounds and scars would show. In a series of studies, Martin Teicher, MD, PhD, and others have shown that there are physical and emotional consequences of just quote-unquote verbal abuse. In one study, the researchers found that the effects of parental verbal aggression were comparable to those associated with witnessing domestic violence or non-familiar sexual abuse. In fact, verbal aggression produced larger effects than familial physical abuse. There is evidence too that exposure to verbal abuse in childhood actually alters the structure of the brain. That was also borne out in another study by Teicher and his colleagues called Hurtful Words. What the researchers found was that especially during the middle school years, when the brain is actively developing, exposure to peer bullying and verbal abuse caused changes to white matter in the brain. Just because we can't see the wounds doesn't mean they aren't literally and physically there. Well, what I'm seeing there is, and I don't want to say obviously, even though it is a word that just was lying on my tongue or laying on my tongue. When you're bullying somebody, and I do want to point out, especially in middle school years and or in those years where your brain is really actively trying to develop itself, of course it is going to change you and it is going to make you a specific person and a different person. When you get bullied, you're maybe going to have troubles trusting people in your future life and so on and so forth. Like, of course, there's going to be consequences to that, 100%. Whether it is indeed kind of changing the matter in your fucking brain or not really mattering to me too much, but it really is indeed going to make you a different person. Whether this is indeed due to, as I said, structural changes in your brain or just some other things, doesn't really matter, but it is gonna change you. As just being a nice person and being nice to somebody else and having great friends and having a great time at school or wherever you are is gonna change you in a certain way. Those people around you, those people that you're surrounding yourself with, they are indeed gonna change you. They are indeed gonna alter you. They are indeed gonna make you a different person. The fourth, some of us are more sensitive to pain, both social and physical, than others. It is called rejection sensitivity, and what it means is that some of us expect and anxiously anticipate social exclusion or rejection, are quick to perceive it and react to it really strongly. You probably know who you are, the person who is anxious about going to a party, who is prone to read into the text you just got. Rejection sensitivity is connected to attachment in childhood. Insecurity attached people are more likely to be rejection sensitive than those who had loving, attuned and accepting relationships in their families of origin. Allah's rejection sensitivity tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy because the person overreacts and misreads social cues. As it is indeed with quite so many things, quite so many things are self-fulfilling prophecies. Mind you, we are all sensitive to social exclusion, but to different degrees. Studies have shown that people who suffer from high levels of daily pain also experience greater fears of social rejection. Similarly to those who have heightened sensitivity to social pain also report having more physical symptoms, including pain, those who are securely attached. I just thought about working out. If you work out every day, it is also pain. It just is, there's no kind of talking it greater than it is or better than it is. It is pain. It is great pain and it is self-induced pain, but what about that, Is it actually making you feel less pain in general, or is it making you more prone to feeling more pain or pain way harder in general? It would actually be quite interesting. Maybe there are actually studies on that, but we are going to go ahead with point 5. emotional or physical pain hurts more when it is deliberately inflicted. At first glance, the statement seems just like a validation of something everyone knows already, but it is an important thing to remember in the digital age when it's often not clear whether the person is deliberately rejecting you. Did she really not see the text I sent 3 hours ago? Or when a conversation that is conducted without the benefit of tone, nuance, or facial expression goes badly? While determining whether a slight or a wound in the real world is deliberate is relatively straightforward. It is not in cyberspace, and it matters, as one study conducted by Court Gray and Daniel M. Wagner demonstrated. Participants were grouped into pairs, one of whom would be administered tasks by the other called the confederate. There were 4 tasks, 3 of which were penning, color matching, number estimation, and pitch judgment, but the 4th was the delivery of an electric shock with which the participant would have to rank on a scale from not uncomfortable to extremely uncomfortable. In each trial, a computer showed 2 sensible tests and was administered. In one group, the intentional condition, the confederate was told to choose the shock when it was a possible choice. In the other condition, the confederate was told to choose the pitch judgment, not the shock, when it appeared on the screen. But the participant was told that, unbeknownst to the confederates, the tasks would have been switched so that the pitch judgment would yield to the shock being administered, albeit unintentionally. The experiment showed that intended pain was perceived as more painful even though the literal amount of pain administered was the same. Attributing malice to something painful not only makes it hurt more, but makes it harder to recover from. Many of us, Alice, know this from experience, but it is good to know that it is a universal reaction. It is why the emotional pain inflicted on us deliberately by people who are supposed to love us, like parents, siblings, spouse, friends, is so hard to get over. Of course, this hurts. And the 6th and also last one, getting over it, is so hard you may need help. For all that emotional pain and physical pain have much in common, our attitudes toward them are very different. You wouldn't find yourself telling someone to get over the pain of a broken hip or leg, but you might very well when it comes to difficult childhood or the pain of a breakup or of a relationship. Understanding the science of pain can perhaps change our cultural attitudes towards social pain and our treatment of it. Consider, for example, a study by C. Nathan de Waal and others that looked at whether acetaminophen, the stuff you buy over the counter for fever and pain, could reduce social pain. Can you take 2 pills to cure the pain of social exclusion the way you might for a headache? In the first experiment, the researchers had participants take either the one thing or a placebo every day for 3 weeks and report on their hurt feelings daily, as well as positive emotional experiences. Amazingly, those taking acetaminophen reported significantly lower daily hurt feelings of rejection or exclusion. The results of a second experiment were less clear. The same conditions as the first were applied, and then the participants played the cyberball game, the one where the player is first included and then excluded by the other players, and then reported on their feelings. MRI scans were then taken. Interestingly, although the pill did reduce activation in brain regions associated with social pain, all the participants, whether they took the pill or the placebo, reported equal levels of social distress to the exclusion episode. This wasn't what the researchers predicted. So while confirming the close connection between physical and emotional pain, this study shows there might not be an over-the-counter remedy for the experience of hurt. Further research will tell us more, but in the meantime we'll just have to focus on causing less emotional pain and helping more when people suffer from it. And what you can do and I can do is just not being an asshole, but trying to be as good and as nice of a person as one potentially and essentially can be. With that being said, I'm gonna see you the next time. Bye bye.